Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm honored to rise in the House to discuss a very important issue today. Of course, on the recent election, I heard loud and clear from my community, as many MPs did across the country, that interprovincial trade barriers must come down for the sake of our economy and the strength of Canada. And I want to congratulate the new minister on her role as Minister of Transport and Internal Trade. And certainly she has a lot of work on her hands. Shipping, for example, many Canadians may not know, but it's easier to ship to the United States than from province to province. In fact, it adds 8.3% to the cost of shipping by truck, all these interprovincial trade barriers, which really amounts to $1.6 billion annually. And again, we're in a cost of a living crisis in this country with the cost of food, goods, building supplies, and a lot of this is as a result of our freight costs. So I'd like to ask the minister, can she commit to harmonizing these trucking costs by Canada Day?
Well, Minister.
I'd like to congratulate the member for Kildonan St. Paul on her re-election. And she is lucky to be an MP for Manitoba because Wab Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba, is one of the leaders of this drive to bring down interprovincial trade barriers. Trucking is absolutely a central issue. I've read the same report that estimates we can add $1.6 billion to our economy. It's a priority of mine. I will always respect the provinces and territories. The federal government is going to do everything in our power with alacrity to remove our barriers. The Conservatives can help us do that, so can the Bloc, by voting for our measures. And as I said, the Deputy Minister of Transport is organizing a trucking hackathon.
The honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister for the response. Of course, though, she has a real leadership role here. The trucking industry itself and trucking businesses in my community are asking and expecting, based on the promises made by the Liberals in the last election and the Prime Minister himself and this Minister, that there would be serious leadership and results by Canada Day. Those are the promises that were made by the Liberal Prime Minister. So just for an example, daylight hours, daylight shipping restrictions, for example, for safety reasons of certain shipments, they can only ship across Canada during the day. The problem is the definition isn't streamlined across the country. Each province has a different definition of what constitutes daylight driving hours. So what has the minister done to show leadership to streamline and harmonize the definition of daylight shipping hours?
The honourable minister.
I love this question because trucking is an obsession of mine. So here's what I have done and am doing. One, spoken to the Committee on Internal Trade and said, let's make trucking a priority. Two, worked with our fine Deputy Minister of Transport to organize a hackathon, a meeting of everyone in charge of trucking in Canada at the beginning of July to bring down all these barriers. Just today, I met with the minister responsible for internal trade, leading the CIT, the Northwest Territories minister, and we talked about how we need to get trucking done. What I will say is, in my time in government,
the honourable member.
with provinces and territories, that is the best path.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I appreciate that response. The problem is I do have a difficult time having confidence in it. About 10 years ago, in September 2016, the Department of Transport, the department this minister is responsible for, had a partnership with provinces to put together a task force that made quite an extensive report on this very issue, supporting the efficient movement of trucks across Canada, that made recommendations on these very topics that we're discussing today. That was nearly 10 years ago. Of course, the Liberal government has been in power that entire time and has had this report in this department. I'm sure her officials are very familiar with it. So it causes an issue of confidence. It sounds really great what they've said. They've made very strong promises, but they have had all this information and opportunity to show leadership on this for a decade. So I'd like to hear a guarantee that the minister will live up to the Prime Minister's promise that we will have, in essence of trucking, the harmonized trucking regulations by July 1st.
The honourable minister in 41 seconds.
Of course, it was the great Marc Garneau who was Transport Minister in 2016, and I want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to him again. I am totally committed to getting this job done, and trucking is very high on my priority list. We're working with the provinces and territories, and they are working so quickly. I'm grateful for their partnership. I hope tonight's debate will encourage them to work even faster.